Hello and welcome. I am excited to introduce today's guest, Megan Powell. A devoted wife and mother, Megan is not only a seasoned real estate investor specializing in flipping and managing a diverse portfolio of single, small, and large multifamily properties, but she's also a licensed realtor in Colorado. With a portfolio of 279 doors, Megan brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. Beyond her success in real estate, she is passionately involved in nonprofit work and plays an active role in her local community. Thank you for joining us today, Megan.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Why don't we start out with you sharing a little bit about how you got started in real estate and what motivated you to build your portfolio?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been a real estate agent and been actively in real estate for a little over almost it's going on 6 years now. I actually, by degree, I'm a petroleum engineer. So I was in the oil and gas industry for 14 and a half years. I'm really active in that industry, really involved. And when my husband and I got married and we wanted to start a family, I just knew that my priority was going to be with my kids. And I was working really long hours in oil and gas, traveling a lot, as you can imagine, to different small towns and things like that. And so I wanted to be home with my kids. So when I left the oil and gas industry and I was staying home with my daughter, I really am just, I guess I call it, I'm a trigger butt. I can't sit still. So I was like, I'm going to get my real estate license. And we really liked the idea of flipping. And so really the license was an end to a means of the real estate investing business. We knew we wanted to build a portfolio. We had kind of heard a lot of the gurus and things of like passive wealth and why real estate could help you get there. So we knew that was something that we wanted to do. So that was where it started. I got my real estate license and I think we bought our first flip like 2 months after I got my license. So we dove straight into it, and I guess I can share about the first flip story if we want to talk about that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Let's have it. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, we say it was our, which a lot of investors, I always tell this, I now kind of coach investors is, it's going to take a few investments or a few, times at bat to learn what you're doing. And we kind of, my husband and I are like, we learned all the lessons in that very first flip, all the things of what not to do. And so it was a really good learning experience. And luckily we came out on the other end fairly unscathed, so to speak. We only lost, well, actually, I think we made like $300 or something in the end, which was good because we learned all the lessons, we sold the house and we got out from under it, but we didn't repeat those mistakes going forward, which was worth millions of dollars. So
awesome. And how many flips have you guys done now?
Oh, I don't know, over 20.
Okay.
20 to 30 probably in the last, really our first 2 years of business was, honestly, after that first flip, we were a little gun shy and really wanted to take all those lessons and take our time. And we were moving from Denver over to Grand Junction. And so it took a while for us to get to our second flip. Mm-hmm. And then once we did 2 and 3, then it's just like every investor says, then it was like, compounded. And then we did, 6 in 1 year, and then we did 10 in 1 year, and it just like kept going.
Kept snowballing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's so much good stuff in what you just talked about in terms of like, you have to start going through the motions, right? You have to actually take action to learn. Like you could have read books and books and books and listened to, a ton of content on how to flip, but until you actually started doing your first flip was when you really started to learn the lessons and gain that experience that then helped you to continue to grow the business. And I'm sure in your coaching, you see this, and I know a lot of us in the investor space talk about this a lot, that like there's so many people that are really interested in investing in real estate, and they acknowledge that there's a lot of opportunity to build wealth in real estate, but they're so afraid for whatever reason or too busy or just don't prioritize it. They never actually take that first step and buy a property and start trying to do something. And so getting over that initial hurdle and actually doing it is where the fun and the learning and the growth all actually happens.
Totally. Yeah. And that's always what I encourage people. It's like, you got to take that first step because it is the biggest step. And it's obviously the most scary one. But if you really think about how much there is to lose or potentially not lose, and you're really invested in that, it's you can mitigate your losses and just learn from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Now, I know, so you started out with flipping, but now you guys also have a pretty robust multifamily portfolio. How and why did you make that transition towards multifamily?
Yeah, that's a good question. I see a lot of people, always contemplating that of like, what what area or what sector of investing do I want to be in? And I think a lot of people start out with, oh, I want to flip, or oh, I want to buy rentals. And we kind of started the same way. We knew that we needed to flip in order to earn enough money to buy rental properties for like the down payment. Because as you know, as an investor, rental properties, you can really buy yourself out of them fast, because when you're putting 20 to 25% down every single time, it can get really costly. So we knew that we needed to do the BRRRR strategy, so we always evaluated a flip. Every single time we got a flip, we were like, do we want to keep this as a rental? Do we want to BRRRR into it, or do we want to sell it? And so we also started thinking about how much time flipping is, and it's a very active form of investing. And a lot of people do not like think about it that way when they get into it. They're like, oh, this is gonna be easy money. No, it's like a full-time job, especially if you do it at the scale that like us and a lot of others do it at. It is a full-time job. And so we wanted more of that passive money, that passive investment, that passive cash flow. So yeah, we started buying small multifamily. So that was our first, I can't remember, our first 2 rental properties were actually condos in Denver, and we've since sold those. So again, took a little small step, learned from it. And then we're like, we really think that if we buy like a 4-plex or a duplex, it's just more cash flow for almost the same amount of work. And so then that's what led us into buying the small multifamilies. We love 4-plexes. There's lots of reasons people should love them. You can still qualify for them in a residential loan. You don't have to go to full-on commercial. So it's just a great like baby step for beginning investors, and they're great cash flow. So we bought small multifamily, and then of course, as most investors are, they're hungry for more. So we were just hungry for more, obviously more cash flow and more passive money, but also more learning and bigger space. And so we're like, we want to maybe move up and play with the big dogs a little bit. So we were in the 7-figure flipping single family group, coaching group called Runway. And that's where I met you, was in the 7-figure family. And so we decided, okay, should we elevate our flipping business up, or should we go into a new sector? Again, a new sector of real estate investing. And we ultimately decided in the end that we wanted to learn the large multifamily, commercial multifamily space. So then we jumped into that, and again, just started taking action and learning as much as we could, talking to as many people as we could. And that's where we were able to build our portfolio, both through being a limited partner and being a general partner.
Nice. And for those in the audience who are listening who may not be familiar with the difference between limited partner and general partner, do you mind just explaining that real quickly?
Yeah, sure. So a limited partner is more of those people that really want the passive cash flow, but they don't want the toilets, tenants, and right. They don't want to deal with the people. They don't want to deal with turning the wrench. It's a really good space for people that are really maybe high income earners, high W-2 income earners, doctors, attorneys who have that higher tax bracket, and they need to really utilize some kind of a tax benefit. They can invest as a limited partner in large multifamily. And then the general partners are the ones that are finding the deals, operating the deals, and really exiting the deals as well, selling them.
Awesome. Thank you. And are you guys currently working on any multifamily deals?
Yeah, we are under contract on a 20 unit in Cleveland, Ohio. That's super exciting. My husband actually just got back late last night from the inspection walkthrough, and everything's looking good. So we're expected to close on that the first week in February. We're excited about that. And then we're a limited partner in a couple other deals. And then our main MSA, we have 2 MSAs, one being Cleveland, Ohio, and then the other MSA is the Alabama area.
Okay.
Primarily Mobile, Birmingham, those larger cities in Alabama. So we're actively looking in those areas.
Awesome. Congrats on the pending closure of your property in Cleveland. That's super exciting.
Excited about that.
It's always fun to see my friends finding and closing on good deals. Yeah. So I'm definitely excited for you guys, and it's fun to kind of watch as you go through the process. Are there any specific projects in your portfolio, either, past or present, that stand out as like a favorite, and why?
I don't know. I would say when you're in the flipping world, it's kind of like, I don't know, being like a teacher or something, maybe like how a teacher would feel of like, oh, I take this kindergartner and take them at the beginning of the year, and then they graduate at the end of the year, and like how much they've learned, and you're like so proud of them, but then when they go, you're like sad. So flipping is kind of like that. Like we always get these awesome houses, and they're so outdated or ugly or just a hot mess, a hoarder house or something like that. And you always get to beautify them. That's one thing I really love about flipping, is the beautification process, and obviously selling them the majority of the time. I mean, 90% of the time I'm selling them to either like a young first-time home buyer or a family. family. And I just love that part of it. I love that part of my real estate business. But it's always just so fun to see the transformation. I have a soft spot in my heart for like the mid-century modern houses, even though like that's not my style that I have at my own house, but
Yeah,
I just
they're just a
fell
lot
in
of fun.
love with them. Yeah. So one of our favorite flips was a 1950s, like mid-century modern house. And we just took all the care in the world for that house. We probably spent a little more than we should have. It was a good time in the market though, but we, did the original hardwood
Oh,
floors
excuse me.
and just did that really cool throwback to the eclectic time, the golds and the restored the fireplace. It was just like that really cool original green brick or that like limestone. So just like things like that, I love.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing about that. I love that
Yeah.
style too. It's just, yeah, there's something that's very unique and like warm and I don't know, just comforting about it.
Yeah, and it's always fun to just see like the transformations and sometimes flippers or fix and flip, whatever you want to call us, we get sometimes a bad rep like in the industry. But I really do not look at it like that at all. I look at it as we are helping people that are often in a situation where lenders or other people can't help them. And they just have gotten themselves maybe into a situation. And so we help them out of that situation and we make a beautiful product in the end that helps restore either the neighborhood or it's helping, move the economy along and it's bringing a
Right.
new family into a home. I do not see it as a negative thing at all. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. It definitely is, a benefit to the community, especially when, if generally speaking, most of the community around the home is not struggling, but that
right.
particular property has been, having a difficult time,
Yep.
then, it brings the entire neighborhood up when you're able to transform that property and it
Right.
provides a home for another family. So,
Yeah. And the
um,
same goes for the multifamily space. I mean,
mhm.
that's kind of the, you and I are both in that kind of that buy box area of buying properties that need a facelift, that need some rehab, need some capital exposure to it, and it's just bringing the entire neighborhood up and it's bringing the whole building up. It's helping all of the tenants to just live in a better community.
Right. Providing a safe and comfortable home for somebody that's,
Yeah.
a place that they're proud to live.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. And that just makes the whole tenant base, the entire building happier, usually the neighborhood around it. People want to stay longer, crime goes down, all of those benefits.
Awesome. Now, I know we talked a little bit in the introduction that you are very active, in your local community. You're a board member and a board president on a couple of nonprofits. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then we'll kind of talk about how you balance doing all of these things.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a good question. I kind of wanted to touch on that at the end or at the beginning, and I forgot. But my why, my husband and I are really passionate about the why of why we went into real estate. I kind of touched on it a little bit of my family at the beginning, but it's even bigger than that. I'm a believer in God, and so I know that like your purpose on earth it's a higher purpose, and so I feel like God has given me that ability to multiply my time really well and to time manage. And so I always feel more productive when I'm busier. A lot of people are like, Megan, how do you do it all? And I'm like, well, it's a time blocking and it's balancing my schedule and it's putting priority where priority needs to be in that day or in that time. And so that being said, when we started real estate investing, our why was really to increase our time by increasing our income so that we could spend our time on the things that really we felt passionate about and where God was calling us and where we felt like we would have the biggest impact in the world. And so we have been able to get both of us out of our W-2 jobs and being able to really work on the things we want to work on. One, real estate investing, but really I only spend probably half of my time in a week on real estate investing. And the other half of my time gets to be with my kids at my kids' school, which is a nonprofit I started. And then at the other nonprofit that I spend a ton of time at, which is our local pregnancy center. So it's like passions that God just put in my heart that I'm able to now work on because of real estate. Real estate has created that path for me. And that's what I tell everybody that is aspiring to be in real estate. I'm like, real estate's hard. Sometimes there's a lot of downs. Sometimes there's losses and you have to keep your why in mind in order to keep pushing forward. I mean, that like every day you have to choose like, okay, I'm going to take this action today, or I'm going to do this hard thing. I'm going to make this hard phone call. I'm going to go underwrite for 2 hours and stare at Excel because I want to take that step to take action that's going to lead me to where I need to go. I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think, that's that's like the crux of the whole like financial freedom thing, right? It's like at the
Right.
end of the day, the financial freedom is really for most of us all about time freedom. And
Yes.
it's not that we don't want to do anything and we just want to be like sitting on a beach sipping Mai
Sitting on a
Tais or
log,
whatever,
right?
like there are a lot of things that we want to do that we feel passionate about, that we feel called to do,
Yeah.
whether that's having an impact in our local community, whether that's building a, education platform for people to learn about something that you're passionate about, whatever it is. A lot of people feel like they've got all these, great ideas of things that they would like to do, if only they had time, but
Right.
then, they never get past that step because it's like, oh, well, I have to go to work and I have to take care of the kids and I have to cook dinner and I have all these things that I have to do. There's just not enough time in the day.
Right.
But there can be, and I think real estate is truly this enabler that, like you said, it's hard work. It's not like I'm just, coming in my office and pressing a button and suddenly,
Yeah.
money
A
money
property
is
appears.
right,
Yeah.
money is flowing in. But it's like this machine that the conveyor belt model, so to speak, where you start doing that effort and putting the properties on the conveyor belt, and the more you do that, the more the passive income starts to come, the more your time is freed up, where you can
Yep.
focus less time and energy on generating income and more
Right.
time and energy on those things that you're passionate about.
Yes. Yes. 100%. All of that. And
Yeah,
I'm sure
that
you've talked to other people about just, and we kind of were touching on that, but beginning about using your time really wisely and really delegating it to the tasks that you need to do. And maybe you need to delegate that to a VA or to another person on your team, something that they are better at. That's been kind of a hard thing for me, I would say, because because I'm an engineer, I'm very type A. It's hard sometimes to say no to certain tasks. Like, I can do it. I can do it
Mhm.
all. I'm a mom, I'm a power mom, I can do it all. But you really sometimes do have to delegate those tasks, or you have to. I'm a really big like Stephen Covey person, like time management. And he has this thing of rocks. We all have these big rocks, medium rocks, small rocks. You have to decide which rocks you're going to handle in that day. And
Mhm.
sometimes that rock is going to get bigger and you may need to tackle that earlier in the week. I'm really big with that of like always looking at my week and being like, what is the things I have to get done? And then what are things that it's the quadrant, the time management quadrant too. What's really important? What's urgent? What's a fire drill right now? And that is really, really prominent in real estate investing. I feel like, especially when you have tenants. There's a fire drill. I got to deal with that right now versus there's something really important in my business that I need to do this week, but it can maybe, be later in the day or something like that. So it's constant time management too.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I think you touched on something really important we should probably talk a little bit more about, and that's like using VAs. And that's something that is relatively new to me. We were talking earlier, like I just hired my first VA about a month ago. So it's still
Yeah.
very, very new. But I felt like I reached this point where I couldn't not hire a VA because there are so many tasks that I'm doing that
Right.
just because I can doesn't mean that I should. And because there are
Yes.
only 24 hours in a day, and I want to minimize the amount of time that I'm spending on work so that I can maximize the amount of time that I'm spending with my family and on those passion
Yeah.
projects and things that, there's no reason that I should be doing something that I could pay somebody else to do and then have that time available to do the most high value tasks that
Yes.
that only I can do
Right.
and that bring me the most joy and that I find the most fulfilling and that fill my cup. And there are just too many things that I've been doing this past year that, I probably should hired a VA a bit earlier. And it was only because I've been in these groups and have surrounded myself with other people who are
Pushing
excelling
you.
in the
Yeah.
space. And when I ask people, how are you doing all this
How are you
stuff?
doing it all?
And
Right.
it's like, oh, well, I'm actually not doing all of these tasks myself. It's like, oh,
Right.
tell me more about this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how long have you been using a VA in your business? And like, what are some of the things that you utilize them for?
Yeah, so we've had a VA for a little over a year. Like her year anniversary was in the fall, so about 15 months. And again, same thing. Like when we were in the coaching group and we were in the runway group, a lot of people were using VAs and we're like, yeah, that's smart. Like we need to do that. And really, if you do want to like elevate your business, you can go for really any business is hire an assistant, hire a VA because they can help you. And I love how Val Braga puts it. She has a VA training business. If anybody's looking for somebody to help, she's amazing. I'll interview them all and then help you find the right one for your business. But I love how she puts it of why would you think that you're good at everything? Because not everybody is good at everything. People are good at limited things and they're really good at some things and maybe they're mediocre at other things, but there's billions of people in the world that are good at different things. So go find that person that's really excels at that thing and let them do it. And it doesn't always have to be somebody necessarily in the United States. That's another thing that gets a bad rep is like, oh my gosh, you're only paying them like $6 an hour. It's like, well, $6 an hour in certain countries is really good money.
Yeah.
It can really help a family and can really help a person. And if they are passionate about that thing and they can do it well, I want to empower them to do that. And they
Absolutely.
can help me and I can help them. And so it's just very mutually beneficial. And so my VA actually lives in Egypt and she's amazing. We have a great relationship, a great working relationship. And she helps me in all three of my businesses, which is impressive. She's very, very intelligent and I give her a task and she just tackles it. She helps me with my real estate, like retail business as a realtor. She helps me with a lot of like social media content and just like keeps me organized if I need her to, help me with a spreadsheet or something, kind of organize things or filter certain things, look things up. She does all that. And then in our flipping business, she helps again with like social media and some marketing things. She helps with some calling with sellers and setting appointments with sellers. And then in our multifamily business, again, she's really good at social media. So she does a lot of my social media and helps me write my newsletter. So yeah, she can kind of do it all, which is great.
That's awesome. I think you're, very fortunate to find like one person, right, who can work across like a vast spectrum of tasks.
Yeah.
The other nice thing, at least what I've heard from other people, is that, you can hire multiple different VAs to handle different tasks as well. And so you might have one who takes care of your social media and another one who, is like your virtual assistant who just like helps keep you organized and manages your admin. And so, you don't necessarily have to find one that can do all the things, but if you get really lucky and you find one that can do it all, then, that's even, it's so funny that you mentioned Val because I was literally just this morning watching a workshop that she did on delegation. Because as I recently brought on a VA, I'm definitely still kind of in that research mode of like how to make sure that I'm best utilizing having her available and making sure that I'm kind of giving the right tasks to her and keeping the right things for myself and, trying to be organized in how I'm approaching that. But Val, with her company's name is Hire Train VA. She puts out so much good training and content that's free just on kind of like how to leverage using a VA, but they really have a great program in terms of finding, vetting, training VAs for you so that you don't have to do that yourself.
Yeah. And I love how like versatile her own business is. A lot of the people that work for her that help interview the VAs and stuff are international as well. Just so cool. It's just, real estate can be very far reaching in that respect. And I was just going to comment that like, don't be afraid to ask your VA or ask like really anybody like, hey, is this something that you think you could train yourself on? Or do you think that you could stretch? Because I asked her, she was originally kind of hired to be more of that admin and like more marketing and cold calling. And I asked her, I said, do you feel comfortable with social media? And she's like, well, a little bit. She says, but I can learn and I will learn. And I was like, awesome. And so she's really just like, that's something that I'm empowering her to create and build that skill set so that one day when she doesn't work for me anymore, which eventually, we may outgrow her or she may want to move on to bigger things herself, and so she's growing that skill and good on her. And that's awesome.
Yeah. I think when they have that hunger to want to grow and learn and expand their own boundaries, then it's a great benefit to them. It also benefits you while they're working for you. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any advice for somebody who's maybe been thinking about getting into real estate investing, but they haven't pulled that trigger yet. They haven't actually taken the step. Like, what's one thing that you would recommend that someone who's interested can do to actually start taking action instead of just thinking about it, instead of just learning about it? Like, what's something that they could do to actually start getting involved?
Yeah, that's a good question. And again, like I said, I love like helping new people get involved because I see myself in that in them. I'm like, I
Mhm.
was you 5 years ago. And just like you said, it only takes that first step to usually get that ball rolling. And then that ball will snowball and it'll roll and it'll go more and more. But I would say kind of a couple key things that helped us and that I would give as advice is always think about, I would say, look at what you want as a goal, maybe like take a short goal, like 1 year. Like, what can I spend money wise, or what can I invest in this year to take a step? Maybe some people have enough money saved up that they can hire a coach, or they can get into like a coaching program or an accountability group or something like that. That's great. A lot of people don't have the money to do that because most good coaching programs are going to be, I mean, anywhere from $7,000 to up to 50.
Mhm.
So if you don't have the money to necessarily hire a coach, I would say immerse yourself in the real estate sector through podcasts. I mean, Bigger Pockets is a great place to start. Megan and I listened to the Bigger Pockets podcast for years before, probably 2 to 3 years before we even jumped in. Just learning. Everybody has time where they're driving in the car, they can listen to a podcast or listen to a book on tape. I would say start reading books, podcasts, going to local real estate meetup groups and just hearing the language and start talking with other folks. You may be lots of my clients that are first-time investors. I always invite them. I actually run our local real estate investor meetup here in Western Colorado. We have about 20 to 25 people that come weekly, but I always invite new people like, hey, just come and be surrounded by others because it's really empowering to hear what other people are doing and to be inspired by that. So I would say if you can afford coaching, go for it, depending on how serious you are, obviously. But if you're just wanting to take that first step, start learning and reading books. And then the other thing I like to tell people is pick your poison. Craig and I always talk about how you can't build 4 or 5 bridges to Financial Freedom Island, we call it. So like if Financial Freedom Island is out here and you're trying to get there and you're building that bridge and then you stop building that bridge and you're like, oh, I'm going to go over here and start a new bridge, which means like, oh, flipping. We're going to do flipping. And then now we're going to do large multifamily. And now we're going to do rentals over here. And we're going to do self-storage or whatever it is. Like you kind of need to build that bridge and really get good and maybe build a small bridge to Financial Freedom Island. Then you can build more bridges. Like some people get Pearl syndrome and they're like, oh, this sounds good. I'm going to do this. Or, oh, this sounds good. I would pick something and kind of go deeper, not wider
Mhm.
in that one area and really learn that. So that's why we did the only flipping for a long time and then kind of pivot to something else or add something else. Start small.
I love that
It's
analogy of the bridge. Like, you only build one bridge at a time. Like, don't start building the second bridge until you
yeah,
finish the first
because the
bridge.
bridge will never get there if you
Yeah.
stop building on it, right?
Yeah. And then you're basically just starting over.
A lot of people equate that to like a certain amount of cash flow per month they
Hmm.
need, right? So for us, it was like, how much cash flow do we need to get, me out of my W-2 job? Okay, we need this much. So we built that bridge, got there. Yes, we're there. Okay, now step 2. How much cash flow do we need to get Craig out of his W-2? Okay, build that bridge. And then you can build momentum and all the while you're building these bridges, you're just gaining so much more skill set and creating so many more connections. And it just helps you obviously build a better bridge and a faster bridge. So
Awesome. Thanks for that. I don't think I've heard that analogy before. I
yeah,
really like
it's
that.
kind of one we made up a little
Yeah,
bit.
no, I like it. It is very
Our Financial
illustrative
Freedom
though.
Island. We all want to get
Yes.
there.
Island. I like it. Okay. And then I would say last question, favorite resources. So I know you just mentioned Bigger Pockets, but do you have another specific like book, podcast, or resource that has been really valuable to you in your real estate journey?
I've read a lot of books. I would say I'm not a huge book person. I'm more of a book on tape person. Again, I don't have a lot of time to sit down and read. When I do get like free time, it's usually not to sit down and read a book. But yeah, the Bigger Pockets podcast is awesome. I mean, the book that kind of started it all for us, and I'm sure you've heard this tons, is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an amazing book to really get and I actually recommend that to a lot of people that come up to me and they're like, how do I get started in real estate investing? Or like, have you read Rich Dad Poor Dad yet? Because that really sets the stage for your mindset. And like, it really helps you understand the concept between what is an asset and what's a liability. Because when you don't understand what's an asset and liability, I mean, how many adults do we know that still get themselves into credit card debt because they don't understand what a liability is?
Hmm.
or they think their car is like an asset. Like, I own my car, that's an asset. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not making you money. It's not an asset. It's a liability. So that just is a good foundational book.
Awesome. I think that's a great final topic to kind of discuss for these last couple minutes, and that whole idea of mindset. And like when I think back, I mean, I knew that there was opportunity to build wealth through real estate for, the last decade plus at least. I never it's like I wasn't looking at it the right way. I kept feeling like I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like it just wasn't the right opportunity for me. When I look back now, like I can see that a big part of the reason that I wasn't seeing the opportunities that could have been there for me at that time was because my mindset was not in the right place and I just wasn't seeing the opportunities through the right lens. And so I
Mm,
think when
mm,
you're able to really focus on your mindset, it really can shift your perspective so significantly in terms of like being able to see opportunities that maybe were there all along, but
right.
you just didn't recognize them as an opportunity because you weren't looking at it the same way. Any books like that, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a great one, but anything that you can do that's going to really help you focus on having more of that like growth mindset and
Yes.
looking for opportunities in new and different places
Hmm.
is a great way to be able to kind of take that initial step and start moving in the direction that you want to go if you're interested in getting into real estate.
Yeah. And I would say even more to go along with that too is like the right mindset. And also the two key ingredients would be right mindset and the right crowd, the right
Mm,
people. Right. When we started out real estate investing, we had a lot of naysayers, of course, you always do of like, what are you doing? That's not a stable like, blue collar job. And it's really getting around the right people that are going to encourage you and hold you accountable. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like your friends or family. Like it can be other people like you and I, like we met through a mastermind we're in, and like there's just so much. I mean, we know the energy and the power that comes from
yeah.
that when you're around other people. It really just puts rocket fuel in you. And like I said, if you can't afford a mastermind or coaching, it's totally okay. Just go to those free things. Go to the real estate investor meetups. Most of the time those are free, especially like your first one. We don't charge for ours. A lot of them don't even have memberships, but just go and be around those people and then take one of them to coffee and
Hmm.
just pick your brain and just get encouragement to take those next steps, because I mean, I'm going to be the first to say, and you know this too, that it's not all roses and unicorns. Like sometimes days are hard. Being self-employed is hard. You have to get up every day and like strap your boots on and say, I'm going to do something today that's going to make me money, that's going to move me further down the line of the goals and dreams that I want. It's not going somewhere and getting paid by an employer oftentimes. There are hard days and you have to make that choice every day. And if you don't have your why and your mindset right, it can be hard.
Yeah, finding that network of people who can help lift you up when times are tough, who can
Yep.
help encourage you when things maybe feel a little bit scary,
Yep.
to give you that foundation and that positive reinforcement that, it is okay to go after to dream and to go after your dreams. And I think, generally speaking, stereotypically or whatever, in society today, there's this sort of like baseline expectation, right? That you should have a stable job and you should have these certain, your life should look a certain way.
Right.
And it can be a little difficult to kind of go against the grain. And it can feel risky because it's different. But sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually risky in a negative way, just
Right.
because it's different. And what might be good for you, doesn't mean that it's good for everyone else. I saw a social media post this morning. This woman was looking for advice. It was in a financial independence group, but she was looking for advice for her teenage son who has a very strong entrepreneurial spirit
Mm,
and had these ideas of like some items that he wanted to flip. And the
okay.
parents were kind of like scared for their kid for like the financial security and the, like just safety in general of like, well, what if he loses money? What if all these,
What if,
potential risks? And, not everyone is going to have an entrepreneurial spirit, and that's okay. But
yeah,
if you have one, and if you want to do those things, you've got to surround yourself with people who also think that way.
right.
You don't necessarily need other people's people's permission to do what it is that you want to do, but it will be a lot easier and it will feel better if you have other people in your circle who are doing that thing and who can see the benefits and who can kind of encourage and support you
Lift you
along the
up.
way versus
Yeah.
the people who feel much more comfortable in the safe, stable job. And I mean, I was one of those people for 20 plus years. I was in the
Yeah.
military. I loved my stable paycheck. Like there is
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
But you have
But
that itch.
yeah, but there's something to be said for having that community of people who are going to support you and, be there on the tough days, but then also be there to celebrate with you when you have your big wins. So,
Yes. Yes.
um,
100%.
yeah,
And I'm lucky that I get to do that with my husband. Not everybody does that in the, in the real estate sector. Maybe they may be doing it by themselves. So yeah, I would encourage people to find that team, that those people.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story
You're
with us today. I really
welcome.
appreciate your insights, both from your experience and especially, a little bit about time management and finding balance, and, that there are a lot of different ways that we can get into real estate and build wealth through real estate. But that ultimately, like, we've just got to start taking action, right?
Yeah.
So if our guests would like to continue to follow your story and see what you're up to, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Those are kind of my social places. And it's just my name, Megan Powell. And yeah, that would be the best way for them to connect with me.
Awesome. We will connect that information in the show notes to make it easy for
Okay.
people to find you. Thank you again for joining us today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to our wonderful listeners for tuning into this episode and being a part of this community. If you found value in this episode, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. Until next time, remember that your path to financial freedom may be closer than you think. Take that first step and explore your possibilities. Stay tuned for more insightful episodes. And again, thanks for listening.